And here we go. Here we are, another Thursday for Master Motivation Podcast. My name is Jason Flame. Let me introduce you right away to our guest, Mr. Kurt Klingenmeyer. He's a passionate educator, entrepreneur, and expert in membership-based business growth. With a background in education and nearly 2 decades of success in the martial arts industry, he's built multiple thriving schools that enroll hundreds of students annually. Kurt blends his teaching experience with smart business strategies to create programs that develop both life skills and confidence. As a consultant with the Martial Arts Industry Association for over 8 years, he's coached school owners nationwide and spoken at dozens of conferences on recruitment, retention, and culture building. His hands-on practical approach has helped countless leaders scale their businesses while staying true to their values. Outside of his professional work, Kurt is also an active member of the Tripoli Shrine Lodge in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. On this episode today of Master Motivation, Kurt Klingenmeyer is going to bring us some education, motivation, and inspiration. Welcome to the show.
Wow, that's an intro.
There it is.
That's a mouthful. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
So excited to have you. As I've mentioned on the last couple, I've been back now. This is third episode back on Master Motivation. And couldn't be more excited to finally have you on the show because we had your book last year and, here we are. So, man, how's life? How's everything going?
Dude, life is great, man. Just living the dream, doing some great martial arts, working with people. It's been fun. The last couple of years have really been a journey, whether it's my martial arts schools or consulting or my kids and my family. And it's been a wild ride. So yeah, I'm loving every second of it.
Well, I'm excited to give you the opportunity and spend this time with you for the next hour and just talk a little bit about your life. And as we're talking about your life and letting us learn a little bit more about you, I hope that people that are watching, those of you that are watching live, or those of you that are watching the replay, you take away a little bit of motivation, again, a little bit of inspiration and maybe some education as well. So I'm going to jump right into our first question. And by the way, anybody watching live, if you have any questions that you would like to hear answered, please drop those in the comments. I'll be happy to ask those to Kurt as we're going through our conversation today. But my first question is, what originally inspired you to pursue a career in education, and how has that foundation shaped your journey as an entrepreneur?
It's kind of funny how the different people that you meet in life, like if you weren't there at some place, at some point in time, having a conversation with somebody, how would your life be completely different? And I got into education because I remember I was a senior in high school and I worked at a bakery for a part-time job. I made breads and rolls and Kringle and all sorts of, just sweet things like that. And my boss, Wayne, I remember I was cutting dough. I remember exactly where I was at. I was measuring the dough. I was cutting the dough up to make some Kaiser rolls or something. And I'm saying, yeah, I got accepted to UW Whitewater and UW Milwaukee and UW La Crosse. I seen Nate rattle off all these universities I got accepted to. And he said, well, that's cool. He said, so what are you going to major in? I said, I don't know. I think like maybe environmental science. And my boss laughed at me. Like, you said, dude, who planted that in your head? He said, what do you know about environmental science? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know anything. and I'm like 17. What do I know? And he said, look, you're going to go to college for 4 or 5, whatever years. He said, you better find something that you're kind of good at and that you want to make a career out of. He said, what do you like doing? And I said, well, I love teaching karate. I said, but every karate school I ever went to closed. But I also love playing my instrument, my saxophone. And I'd gone, through middle school and high, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. I went to state on every solo that I ever did. I said, I love playing my instrument. And he said, there you go, man. He said, go be a music teacher since you love that and you love the teaching side of it, and maybe do some karate for fun. And if I didn't have that conversation with him right then and there, cutting that Kaiser roll and measuring out and him laughing at me, who knows how things might have changed.
Life would be different. It's pretty crazy how those conversations can just take you. I mean, we're probably going to cover this topic in a lot of other areas of your life too, with how you got involved with Maya and how you became a consultant, and just these conversations that literally are life changing. But what I thought was really cool was the advice of, what do you like to do? What are you interested in? Because something that I've been very I've really tried to relay this to my kids, that whatever it is that you want to do in life, find something that you enjoy and you can make a good living doing. And by the way, go to school to get as much education as you can to provide as much opportunity as possible. But like, don't go get a job just because you got to get a job, right? Because then you're going to end up working in a place that you might just not like. And life's too short, man, to be stuck in a position where you have to go to work instead of like us. Man, I don't know about you, but 30 plus years in the martial arts industry, and I am still loving getting up to go teach. I mean, I'm constantly looking for more opportunities to teach. So I just really liked that advice of, find something that you love. Now, number two, what keeps you motivated after nearly two decades of running a successful martial arts school? What keeps you motivated?
And I got to have goals. I got to have some goals. I got to write them down. And I think the trap that everybody falls into. I remember going to a workshop. I'm pretty sure you might have been there too. We're going back like a decade and a half now. I remember one of my mentors, Mr. Silverin, saying, "Hey, look, get out some note cards." And on it was like 4 note cards. He said, "Where's the one place that you look at every day?" And he said, "Hopefully it's the mirror. Make sure you're looking right." He said, and write down like your personal goals, your work goals, and your family goals, and only have like 3. Don't put down 50. And he said, and stick that up on the bathroom mirror so you see that every single day. And I remember I did that, and my wife would say, we're gonna have company coming over. You're gonna take those down? Yeah, okay, but they got to go back up. I got to see them every single day. And lo and behold, I hit I think it was 8 out of 9 of those goals that year. And then I thought the next year, well, I got this down. I don't need to do that. So I wrote down my goals, put on a note card, but I didn't put it up on the mirror. And then lo and behold, no, I didn't meet any of my goals that year. And I think it's just, get the stuff out there, you write it down. You got to look at it daily. You got to have some measuring steps. How am I going to get to that point? And, it's just some accountability, man. I knew that, how to stay motivated. I gotta have something that I'm working towards. And because if I don't have something I'm working towards, it's easy just to flatline that thing out.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we know that motivation is what helps get us started, but as martial artists, discipline is what keeps us going to reach those goals.
Yeah.
And so the whole concept of having your goals be visual and something that you can measure, I think is super important. I mean, I'm that same way. I've got a list of all my lists, and I keep lists on my phone of not only goals, but also I like to keep a victory list of all the things that I've accomplished, because sometimes we get so caught up in setting a goal, adding a goal, adding, and then we forget to look back and go, man, I've actually done a lot, right? I mean, I've got 10 things on my to-do list or 10 things on my goal list, but I forget, man, I've accomplished, X number of things in the last month or the last year or the last 10 years. So I think both of those are super, super important. By the way, we got a bunch of people jumping on today. I'm loving seeing the viewership jumping up. If you guys are watching live, my name is Jason Flame, and this is Kurt Klingenmeyer. If you have questions, please let us know, because we'll be happy to throw those up and get you some answers to your questions. Or even if you have some, you need some advice on a certain area, please let us know. Share with us, Kurt, a pivotal moment in your career when you had to dig deep and find, motivation or the discipline to push forward.
I would Yeah, there was a spot in before I started running martial arts schools. Okay, I did go to college, and I went and got a bachelor's and I got a master's degree in music education. I was teaching. I was teaching fourth and fifth grade band and orchestra. Loved the job. I mean, it was fantastic working with little kids, teaching them, starting them from scratch. And I was teaching in marching bands and drum corps all across the country. I was having a ball. I was having a great time, but I was kind of plateaued, with what I could do. And I got approached to start teaching a few students, like 4 or 5 students. And I'm like, man, I'm really digging this. And I was doing both. I was running kind of, let's call it a club, little martial arts club on the side, and then teaching, band and orchestra, exactly what my boss Wayne said that I should be doing. And so I got to that point, and then I started looking at like these MA's martial arts success magazines, and our teams were competing well. I was still competing, but I would read articles about people that had like 3, 4, 5 locations and hundreds of students, and it could do this as a career. And I'm like, man, how do you do that? I have no idea. Every martial arts school that I ever gone to had closed, and they were great martial artists, great competitors. But it was about kind of putting things together a little bit. And all these other school owners that I trained with are still really good friends of mine. But it was just kind of putting it together as a long-term career and then a career for other people. And I think that kind of that moment, like, okay, I need help. I guess I don't know everything. Yeah, I have a master's degree in education, but I can't put this martial arts school together past just having it as a club, more than 30 people. And that was kind of the point where, like, okay, I need some help. I don't know I know enough on the teaching side and the martial arts side, but I don't know how to put this whole thing together. Mm-hmm. And you want to talk about like some hard advice that I really needed at that point. And I decided to get some like consulting and some mentorship, really, mm-hmm. on how to take that to the next level, because I don't know how to do that. I just don't. And I signed up and started working with a mentor. And then after that, I told my dad. Now, I remember I was at my great-grandfather's house. He was 102. Wow. He was, to put this in perspective, he was born in 1898. Okay. And he was still around. I said, and I was helping clean his gutters. And I looked at my dad and I said, he says, hey, how's the karate thing going? I said, good, but I think I'm going to get some mentorship. And he says, well, why? You guys just went to Denmark and competed in a tournament. You guys are competing great. And I said, look, Dad, I don't know how to scale this thing. And he told me, he said, look, I think you're making a big mistake. He said, I think you're making a mistake. You know how to compete. You know how to fight. You know how to do this other stuff. He said, do what you know how to do. And I said, Dad, I don't know I don't know how to take it to that next level. And I got called an idiot. It was a hard conversation. And but I'll tell you what, that hard conversation is what I needed. I needed him to say that, hey, look, I think you're making a mistake. And for me to have to step up and say, okay, look, yeah, this is, it's kind of everything's working against you. You need to take a leap forward. Mm-hmm. And that's when I said, you know what, I have to do this. I'm going to give this a shot. I'm going to listen to some other people who know more than I do. And,
right.
Try to take this thing to the next level. So that was probably one of the hardest obstacles, was just getting out of my own way and understanding, yeah, just because I got a college degree and, multiple black belts does not mean I know how to scale a martial arts school.
Right.
And ask for help from strangers that I don't know.
Well, a black belt in martial arts is a black belt in martial arts, but a black belt in martial arts doesn't mean that you're a black belt in business. And so, what do we do when we need help learning, a front kick, or learning a jump front kick, or what do we do? We ask our instructor for help. We go to someone that knows how to do it and can do it probably better or has been doing it longer. What do we usually do in life when we're struggling? We go to mom and dad. Hey, I need some advice, and in your case, got a little different reaction than maybe what you expected, but still
Mhm.
looking for advice. How many times in the martial arts industry do we find that people's ego is just what's standing in the way, right? I'm a black belt. I'm a 12th degree black belt in whatever art, right?
Yeah.
But that really doesn't mean anything when it comes to growing the school and being the number one rated fighter or being a competitor at a very high level. That's not always going to be what makes your martial arts school. Being the best instructor is not always going to be what's going to make the best school. So learning a little bit more about business, and I was right there with you. I had been in a situation where I thought that I was doing pretty good, but the reality was I didn't know what I didn't know. And then we look at, you go to the super show, you start networking with these bigger businesses, these bigger martial arts schools that are really doing it right. And the best part is, and to anybody watching, is that you can have a great business and still have high quality martial arts, right? So the whole sellout, conversation is ridiculous, right? But I
Right.
mean, like, when we need help in life, when we need help, every single professional athlete has a coach, has a mentor, or I should say multiple coaches. I mean, heck, my son played baseball for 10 years and he had a coach for pitching, batting, and the whole bit. And he was like, in his 10 to 14-year-old age that he had coaches in different areas for this one activity. So I can absolutely see and have learned that firsthand myself, that having a coach, having a mentor, and having someone that can help take us to that next level is always needed. No matter what level you're at, there's always a next level, and there's always someone there that can help kind of pull you up. And now you're in a position where you're that person that is helping lift people up. And I think that is just totally amazing. Speaking of taking things to the next level, I want to take a quick break and shoot in a commercial here for a great friend and a great martial artist with an amazing program for your martial arts schools. Let's check this out. This is Raptor Extreme Karate. Hey guys, we're back. If you're just tuning in, my name is Jason Flame, Master Motivation Podcast. We got Kurt Klingenmeyer from Championship Martial Arts. We've just been talking a little bit about, his pursuing an education in music and being a music teacher, and talking a little bit about, getting a mentor. So make sure you check that playback on the last 20 minutes. But we're going to move into a new area, and just, you've helped hundreds of students, Kurt. Hundreds of students and fellow business owners grow. What's the most rewarding part of being an educator and a mentor?
I'd say success. And everybody has their own definition of success. Let's say if it's the student. I'm working a little one-on-one with one of our teenagers. He's 13 years old, and showed up to a couple of the tournaments that he's going to, and he was doing well, kind of, fourth place, third place, in some really tough divisions. And I said, hey, look, we're going to come at this from a different strategy. Okay. We're going to tweak this and then this up. We're going to start doing this. we're going to change sides and do this. And all of a sudden, 3 tournaments in a row, first place, first place, first place, just by making some adjustments to what he's doing. And yeah, I'm not in the ring, fight the fight for him. He's out there succeeding on his own and going from here to here. And he's the one experiences the success, not me. And I think that's really cool to see somebody, achieve at a higher level and grow at a higher level and do some things that they haven't done before that they didn't think was possible. And, so from like the student side, I just want to see people succeed, with that then. And for him, it's on the tournament side. There's other, kids or adults, for the kid that comes in who's I remember there was a 4-year-old who came in. Now I knew her mother like in middle school and high school. And this 4-year-old, I mean, she was just 4, and she was that kid who would, kind of hide behind mom's leg the entire time. And I said to the mom, I said, okay, let's get her going. I said, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. It's going to take like 2-3 weeks for her to actually get the courage to go on the floor. That's normal. That's completely normal. I said, now what's going to happen is you, mom, you're going to get frustrated before she does. I said, I need you got to take your frustration out of it. This is completely part of the process. Okay. It's going to take 2 or 3 weeks. She's eventually going to come on the floor and she's going to have a great time. And I remember talking to the mom. She's like, maybe like a couple months later, because that's exactly how it happened. It took like 3 weeks for her to get comfortable to start, kind of warming up with things. And she gets out there and then finally she's punching or kicking on like week 3 or week 4. Fast forward like 8 years later, she earned her black belt in confidence, and she's in high school right now. Confidence is not a problem with this kid. And so she went from that shy little girl hiding behind mom's leg all the time to getting the confidence, and 8 years later earning her black belt. And I like to think that at the high school level, and she's involved in other sports and stuff like that, that's helped her out with other areas of her life. When the adult student comes in and says, hey, look, I'm 40 years old and I haven't done anything since I was a senior in high school. And I need to kind of get back on track. I want to learn some self-defense, and I gotta get a little more in shape here. And seeing that adult experience that, man, I'm learning great self-defense. I lost a couple pounds. I'm getting more flexible. It's whatever the success is, for the person. For on the consulting side, I was working with a couple of other school owners today that had around like 30, 35 students, knowing that they're going to get to 100 students. And, go backwards a couple of years ago, the people who went from 20, 30 students to now have, 100, 200, and they were able to do this as a full-time job now where they didn't think that was even possible. That's their success. So it's kind of all boats rise with the tide. And, whatever that success driven is, it excites me a little bit. I'm happy for them, and and that's what they signed up for. So it's kind of, everyone has their why, and when they do it, it's good to see.
Well, and it's kind of a full circle moment too, right? Because you are the product of someone that poured into you, right? Someone poured into you to help you reach your level of success. And isn't it just such an awesome way to pay it forward, to say, I remember when someone was there for me to help me get to this next level, and now you're doing the very same thing. Another thing I love that you said is, and I hope that I've got some parents watching, that if you're thinking about putting your kids in martial arts, or I've had the very same situation of that 4-year-old, super shy, didn't want to step on the mat, and I had the same conversation. Trust the process. You got to trust the process. And you're 100% right that the parent will give up way faster than the child, because let's face it, it's kind of embarrassing when your kid won't get out on the mat or your kid won't perform. But when you trust the process, and we as instructors can paint that picture of, we know what it's going to look like a month from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, and ultimately, achieving the rank of black belt and going beyond, right? You've seen students that have had that high level of success in high school because of the confidence that they gain from martial arts. So, all of that being said, I mean, it's just such an amazing feeling to be able to pay it forward because, again, someone poured into us, right?
That's it. That's it.
So, let me ask this: how do you cultivate a culture of motivation and personal growth within your schools and among your team members?
Well, team members, we got to have goals. Okay. And people like structure. Everybody likes structure. And we all thrive from structure. This sounds like just so, basic. And I look back and I'm like, why haven't I been doing this? Why wasn't this explained when I'm paying for college, for a bachelor's or a master's degree? Why wasn't this taught to me in high school? And maybe it was, maybe I just wasn't mature enough to handle it then, or I thought that was beneath me. Time blocking and scheduling my day. Wow. I mean, you'd said, Jason, you had said that you like those successes, and it's the same thing. I need success throughout my day. And I found that I was just like taking just like an envelope and writing down like my to-do list and what I got to get done. And like it would kind of get done kind of as I went on, kind of throughout the week. But I learned that I give this to, maybe I heard this before, but I didn't pay attention to it until my friend Chris Rodriguez said look, you got to chunk out your times. And by chunking out your times, she said, plan like 30 minutes. If it's a 20-minute task, schedule 30 minutes and give you like a 15-minute buffer. And get this done, get that done, get that done, get that done. Plan out your day the day before. And I thought, oh, I don't have to do that. That's kid stuff. That's rookie stuff. No, man, that's like everybody's stuff. As soon as I started doing that, I could start check boxing. I felt good. I felt really good. When I got done with my day, I'm like, dang, I got a whole bunch of stuff done. And so I bring that to the team, our other employees. And we have 6 full-time employees and then all other part-timers and stuff too. Like, hey, look, there's something to this. And it sounds so remedial, but man, it feels good when you can, okay, I got this done. I got this done. And it's not a to-do list. It's okay. This is my action time. This is my action time. This is my action time. So like to cultivate success, man, I think it's all about achievement and getting stuff done. And then of course, meeting with the team, but really blocking your day out and not just running off of a to-do list. I don't want to treat my schedule like my shopping list. My schedule should not be done on the same envelope that I put my shopping list on. I got to have that thing chunked out. So when I'm done or the team's done, I look and I'm like, yeah, you know what? I got some stuff done today. I feel good about it. Not just my daily stuff, but I worked on stuff for the future. And there's some other stuff. I mean, like, what do I got a time block for my day? And then what do I got to get done this week? What do I got to get done this month? What do I got to get done this quarter? What do I need help with? Because if it ain't written, it doesn't get done. And kind of moving away from that to-do, I call my to-do list, my shopping list, moving away from that and actually blocking my day out. Mm-hmm. And myself and the team feeling good about it, man, we get way, way more done and feel better about it.
Well, as martial artists, right, something that comes to mind is most people, when they figure out that they really want to make a commitment or a goal to become a black belt, right? My goal is I want to earn a black belt. Well, that's not happening today, tomorrow, next week, or even next year, right? That's several years of lots of different small achievements, right? And so what I like to do is when you take that black belt is work it backwards, right? Okay, what do we got to do to get to black belt? Well, you got to earn all the belts to get to black belt. Okay, well, how do you earn a belt? Well, you got to earn your stripes and you got to, learn your material to get to each belt. Well, what do you got to do that? I got to go to class at least 2 to 3 times a week, and then I got to practice 2 to 3 times a week at home. And in order to do that, I need to have the discipline to set aside some time in my day to get that one little piece done, right? So now if I get that little piece done, then I get to go to class. When I go to class, I learn the curriculum. When I learn the curriculum, I earn my stripe. And when I earn my stripes, I get my belt. I keep earning my belts. I get to black belt. Wow. That's a big goal. Work backwards creates your plan. I love that. And the other thing, I was just talking to my class the other day, my leadership team, and even just our instructor team, and the book that revolves around making your bed, right?
Yeah.
Making your bed, for me, literally is the first checklist item or the first accomplishment or the first, in some small way, my first success of the day. When you make your bed and take the time to do that, you kind of set yourself up to have a day full of success. So yeah, I really love that. Hey, we got someone watching. We got, let's see who we got. This is Megan Leslie.
One of the students that we teach at our Racine location. She does. Megan is mom, and Lauren is their daughter, and she's been a student of ours for years now, and competes all over the place. Helps out with classes, does really well in tournaments. But what a fun family! Great people.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for watching, and don't be afraid to share some questions or ask some questions, and of course, share this live video as you're watching now. Let's jump into the next question. What role does mindset play in both education and entrepreneurship, and how do you help others develop a winning mindset?
Wow, you could spend a whole day, a whole course just talking about that with mindset. I remember when I was doing my master's degree in music, and I remember we were in this full band. I mean, 120 band directors. We were playing stuff I had never played before. I mean, it was some hard stuff. And I'm playing saxophone, and somebody messed up big time, like in the percussion section. I mean, they messed up big time, and I could see that the conductor is maybe like 10 feet in front of me. You can see he's getting mad, and she's messing up this little bass drum part, and it wasn't a hard part. I remember he put down the baton, and he got really calm and said, "Okay, will you have this done on Thursday?" And she said yes. Now, of course, we come back on Thursday. I'm like, uh-oh, is this going to be done? Because she's going to get it. And sure enough, she didn't play it right. And he went nuts. And he's lecturing her. It was bad. It was like, how are you going for a master's degree if you can't play this bass drum part? I mean, it was bad. Now, I had a solo in this song. And so I get up to the saxophone part, and I was thinking about that, and I came in early. And I'm like, uh-oh, here it comes. And I looked up, and I could see him reaching above the music stand, like I'm going to get it. And I looked up, I said, that's never happening again. I mean, just in a big old full voice. I said, man, that is never happening again. And he looked at me and said, what did you say? I said, I'm never making that mistake again. Okay, all right. And sure enough, I did it. So we had to write these reflection papers, okay, about this. And I made a comment about that, hey, look, we're in a master's program. We got to do this right. And he said something that was profound and big. And I didn't know if he was reading this stuff. Actually, I probably could have counted. I didn't think he was reading these. And in big red ink, the green pen, but it was red, it was circled. And he said, do you realize that you are now complaining about the complainers? And I read that. I'm like, oh. And then I started kind of listening when I would say something or, complain about something. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Man, I'm complaining about the complainers. And it was that moment. I'm like, you know what? I need to watch what I say. Because by me speaking negative about somebody doing something that's negative, the two negatives ain't a positive when it comes to stuff like that. And I saw that. I'm like, I need to change the way that I think. I can't do anything about those people that are good, because there's always going to be naysayers in life. I can't do anything about them. I need to focus on what I'm doing and then doing it in a positive way. Uh, Fast forward, it was like 2 years after that, I'm at the Martial Arts Super Show. And Tony Robbins starts talking about motion creates emotion. And I remember going to that. I'm like, wow, this is so incredible. I had a notebook and I was writing stuff down. And I get home, I'm telling my wife, well, this thing was incredible. Motion, this and that. She said, well, what did you learn? And I really thought that I had pages written down. I had that one sentence, motion creates emotion. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. Crazy seminar. I had no idea what that means. Later that day, I'm watching a Chris Rock special. And on that Chris Rock special, he says, you wonder why you don't have friends. He said, you go to work, somebody says, hey, how was your weekend? Oh, it's too hot. It was too cold. It was too short. Negative, 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 negative. He said, people define their lives by the amount of misery that's in it. Pause. I remember my wife, Angie, she said, what are you doing? And I rewound it. I watched that. I'm like, wow, that's pretty powerful. Good thing that's not me. Good thing I'm not doing that. Monday rolled around. I was walking through the library at the elementary school I was teaching at. And Sarah, I think she was a special ed teacher. She says to me, hey, Kurt, how's your weekend? Well, it's too short. And I stopped. I'm like, shoot, that is me. And then I started listening to myself when I'm teaching. It was don't do this, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. I was telling everybody how it was all negative, 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 negative. I was telling people how not to do something, but I was never telling them how to do something.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, holy cow. And then you start listening to that. I'm like, dang, that happens not just all the time with me. It was like everybody. So I think with the whole mindset, to go full circle of this is, know who your audience is and be purposeful with your speech. If you're helping somebody, don't tell them 10 ways how not to do it. Tell them how to do it. And then when you're speaking, hey, look, how was your weekend? How was this? How was that? You don't want to be the negative naysayer. You know what? If you had a bad weekend, do something about it. Go out and do something fun. So yeah, I think it's that whole mindset. You got to stay positive, and that's not a fluff thing. Okay. Not just, just stay positive. Yeah. You got to be positive. You got to be purposeful with what you're saying, and don't stop complaining about the complainers, because it ain't going to get you anywhere. Two negatives don't make a positive. So that's my soapbox.
Again, that positive mindset, just that shift, right? And listen, we were probably brought up in the martial arts era of the don't do this, don't do that, and we learned by negative reinforcement. And listen, I'm not, perfect by any means. And we talk about this in our leadership training all the time. Tell them what you want them to do, and they don't necessarily need to hear what not to do. It's just a different, we hear it differently, but we're so ingrained in that old school tough love. And again, there's nothing wrong with it because we came up in it and did well with it. But not everybody is going to grasp that the same way. And it's funny that you bring up the conversation of, people ask you how your weekend was and, oh, it was too short. Or, it's not just the complaining. As a matter of fact, I often ask people, how's your day going? Or how was your weekend? And the response is, I can't complain. And I always respond to it now. And I say, well, do you have anything to be grateful for? And what a difference that makes, because I know that I was that person that was, I wouldn't have anything really negative to say, but I never really focused on saying something positive. And, this morning, every Thursday morning, my wife and I attend our More Pork Morning Rotary Club. And one of the things we do is we do this thing called Happy Dollars. And so we pass around the hat and you drop in your donation, and you tell everybody a happy thought. And I got to tell you, every Thursday morning, the first thing I do is I wake up and I go, what am I going to say for my Happy Dollars? But that has transcended into my daily life of, instead of thinking about I can't complain or not bad, what's actually good and what is positive. So, hey, we got another we have a guest. Tom Bloom is watching. Good morning, sir. He's enjoying the episode and back to organizing your day. Could you please share your paradigm of your work, day, week, and month? Wow, that could be a long discussion.
Yeah.
But let's see if we can nail down a couple things, daily, weekly, monthly things that are on your list.
Oh yeah. So if picture like your screen here, and I literally have just a big old like a chalkboard but dry erase board. Okay. And so I have my daily stuff that I need to get done. And my daily stuff for myself is different now than what it was 10 years ago. But so with my daily stuff, I got to make sure that I do some stuff for me in the morning. I'm trying to get back in the habit of, get in the gym, working out daily, trying to live like Jason Flame here. I dig it, man. I love it. I don't know if I got the courage to do the wrestling thing though. that was pretty badass. So I
It was
dig
good
that.
time.
So so I literally have for my time blocking daily, I need to get at least 4 big things done. And those are, half an hour things, 45-minute things, which does add up in time. Then I got to make sure that I have time blocked out for my staff and for their staff training. And then I need to start working on some projects that need to get done this week. So when I have my big dry erase board, everything kind of moves from right to left where, okay, I got my daily stuff, but this week I got to get this done. And so I want to move my weekly stuff over to my daily. I'm getting that done today. And it's the same thing with my monthly stuff. If I need to get, X, Y, and Z done this month, okay, I need to get this moved over to this week, then it needs to get moved over to this day. It's the same thing for the quarter. And it's the same thing for things I need help with. If there's somebody like a specialist that I need to reach out to that, hey, look, I need to, let's say like it's on the martial arts side and I have some questions about a form or a kata. I got to reach out to one of my instructors. I got to get that done this month. So it's really, I just need to constantly keep shifting everything down to the daily level. But then I do have my stuff that I got to get done this week because otherwise we all fall into the trap. It doesn't matter what activity you're in. It's wow, that worked out so great. I never did it again. Wow, that was such a successful thing. I never did it again. I need to make sure that it's scheduled because it's not scheduled. It doesn't get done, but I got to feel good about it. I got to check it off because I don't want to treat it like my shopping list. So sorry to keep holding up my bill all the time, but that's how I do not want to treat it as. So I hope that helps. But Tom, hey, hit me up anytime, man. You can find me up on Facebook.
Thank you, Mr. Bloom, for watching. Appreciate you, sir. He was a guest. He was my first guest back this year on Master Motivation Podcast, and he's got his own podcast out there. Can't wait to see some more episodes coming from him.
Cool.
I'm gonna take a quick break one more time to recognize another sponsor of the show, the Connected Leaders Academy with Jose Escobar. Hang tight.
Hi, my name is Jose Escobar, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Connected Leaders Academy. We're a growing tribe, a community of entrepreneurs all over the world, globally, all across the country, high performers, titans of industry. If you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to grow personally and professionally, scale your influence, develop your skill sets, move the needle in your business, more clients, more money, more profit, the bottom line, and of course, grow your circle and your network like never before, this is where you want to be. Join the Connected Leaders Academy today. We are scaling massively. We want to welcome you in. Check me out on Instagram and on Facebook, the @ JAESCO25. We look forward to having you join us. Take care.
Hey guys, I'm Jason Flame, Master Motivation Podcast with Kurt Klingenmeyer and Championship Martial Arts. That was Jose Escobar with Connected Leaders Academy. If you'd like some more information about how to get involved in this international networking organization, it's amazing. Authors, speakers, martial artists, professional athletes, you name it, entrepreneurs, they're in there. So let me know if I can get you connected with him, or if you'd like more information about Raptor Extreme Karate with Kevin Kowalczyk. But we're here with Kurt Klingenmeyer talking talking shop, talking about martial arts, talking about life, talking about motivation. Um, who has been or who have been some of your biggest mentors or sources of inspiration along the way? And what did you learn from them?
Oh man, depends on what decade you're
Right?
talking about. Coming up in music, and, of course, taking like private lessons and stuff with music and trying to push you and get better. I remember I had a private lesson teacher who said, "Hey, look, you need to put it all out there. Okay, you need to be aggressive, and you need to play like when you play in front of somebody, even if it's in front of a professional, you have to have a little bit of a chip on the shoulder saying that, hey, let me show you how to do this." He said, you can't be shy about that. When you go out there, you put your best foot forward. And that all really intertwined with my karate and with my martial arts, where I had some great instructors who were, really pushing like the tournament scene. Like, hey, look, go out there and dominate. Go out there and put your best foot forward. And look, you lose, that's fine. You come back and you do better next time. And it was always push, be the best you can, put yourself out there. And if it wasn't for that kind of driving factor, I don't know if that's nature or nurture, but that type of nurture component, man, I love that. I loved going to karate tournaments with my dad and my brother, and my dad would, my mom would usually not go. She'd say, Kurt, I get so scared. I get so nervous when you go. I'm like, I'm the one out there. What's the big deal? Come on, Mom.
Yeah.
And I said, someone's got to hold the big camcorder. That's for you young people that were born. If your birthday starts with a 2 for the year, that was something you had to put on your shoulder. And so I said, someone's got to hold the camera. But my dad would take me out to tournaments, and my brother and I would be there, and just having a ball, and we loved it. And my dad would always push us. And I remember he would say, even as a young adult, he would sit back. Now, he wasn't a martial artist, but he would sit back and say, hey, look, he's only fighting right side forward. Okay. And he's using this kick all the time. He said, you know what to do with that, right? I'm like, oh yeah. So it was kind of having my dad in my corner and having my brother right next to me with it, man. It really, it's just some fun family stuff, mentors on, as I think I got maybe a little less motivated in music as a career when I didn't have a mentor anymore, because I didn't have a direction. It was okay. I have my job, and it was just kind of, it was, you had your program, but there wasn't any push. There wasn't a big direction you were going. You're just kind of left on your own. Mm-hmm. And when I signed up with some mentorship to learn how to run martial arts schools, I finally had, it's like, wow, I have direction now. I know what to do. I have structure. And I think not just kids crave that. I think us as adults, we crave that too, where it's like, okay, I have a path now. And I know what I can do. This is what I have to do. I need to get X, Y, and Z done, instead of it just being, when I was in my music career, it was a little vague. I was already there. I didn't have that direction. Yeah, could I have taught at a university level and got my doctorate? Yeah, I could have gone down that path, but I didn't really have an interest in that. So, that mentorship, that guidance, with Mr. Mike Metzger, Frank Silverman, and we'll talk shop like karate, sometimes, but it's always really about personal growth, and how is the personal growth of your martial arts schools and stuff like that. It's never about, with them, it's never about the punch and the kick. It's more about everything else. But then I got other friends, John Hackelman from the Pit. Man, I love that dude. He's a lot of fun. If I want to talk martial arts, well, I'll give Hackelman a call, and he's got stories beyond anything. It's always about the growth. Always about the growth. Whether it's my growth, or it's the school growth, or it's the student growth, or the martial arts school growth as a whole. It's just having those people that have your corner. You said everybody has a coach. Mike Tyson had a coach. Everybody's got a coach. John Jones has a coach. You got to have someone to hold your feet to the fire and to push you ahead. So,
Well, interesting that you brought up Mike Tyson has a coach. What happened to Mike Tyson when his coach died?
yeah.
How did we see him change dramatically, right? And so to your point, when you started, losing a little bit of interest in the music because there's the lack of mentorship or the lack of vision too. And that's something that we talk about in our martial arts schools or in our martial arts business, is that if we can't provide them with the vision of where they're going, that's where we lose them, right? And so and the vision isn't always black belt, right? And that's what a lot of people can get hung up on is the vision is black belt. Well, what happens after black belt? My goal is not to get everybody to black belt. My goal is to teach them how to live a martial arts lifestyle, because martial arts for me has always been a lifestyle, and that's what sets us apart. I think truly sets us apart from other sports and activities. All right, well, we're getting down to the wire here. We got a couple questions left, and we've had a little bit of interaction here today. Again, those of you that are watching live, please let us know if you have any questions. My next question for you is, as someone who teaches life skills through martial arts, what are the most important lessons you hope that every student walks away with?
When someone comes in, I call it when I was young and dumb. Okay. And so I'll chalk that up as like my mid-20s. Okay. Mid-20s. Let's just call it my 20s. I thought that everybody was there to learn self-defense and to fight. I just, because that's what my mindset was when I was that, 10, 11, 12 teenager and in my early 20s and stuff. And so I thought everyone's there for the same reason I was. And I didn't have any kids at that point. I do now. I have an 11 and a 13-year-old. But I didn't have any kids then. But then we started polling everybody when they came in. And we just asked them, are you here for confidence, discipline, fitness, or self-defense? And self-defense was almost always last. It blew my mind because I thought that was everybody's number one, what they were there for. And I was completely wrong. And I'm like, okay, well, we still need to teach great self-defense, but we need to kind of have a mind shift on, how we're helping students with, and I'm not talking about kids and even adults, but how we help them out with their confidence and their self-discipline. And so we needed to not restructure our program. We needed to add to it. And so now when we ask people, hey, look, what are we looking for? It's confidence and discipline is always number one and number two, 9 times out of 10. But if there was like 3 things that I love just kind of bantering with students on, and I picked this up again, at a Tony Robbins thing, the whole call and response. And if I'm going to have students be 3 things, I want them to be tough, strong, and focused. So in a class, when I'm out there teaching, I'll just say, whether it's like to my students or I'm teaching at an elementary school, in front of 200, 300, 400, 500 kids, I'll just tell them, say, hey, everyone say, I'm tough. And that's it. And then I'll move on to my next thing. And then maybe 5 minutes later, it's like, say, I'm tough. And they respond, I'm tough, I'm strong. And then maybe 5 minutes later, I'm tough, I'm strong, I'm focused. And then I'll say, okay, thump the chest. Okay, ready? I never quit. And say, look, there are going to be tough things in your life. People are going to beat you down. Okay, there are going to be some things that are going to kind of push you, and you wonder if I got the strength to do it. You need to be tough. You need to be strong. You need to be focused. And so, if there's anything that I want my students to learn, it's how to be tough, strong, and focused. Growing up, so they have those tools. So when they graduate high school, they not only have the scholastic side of it, they know how to succeed as a person then too.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you touched on something that I think as coaches in general, not just in the martial arts, but there's a difference between what people want and what people need, And I think our job is to give them both.
Yes.
And that's why, as martial arts instructors, we all know that self-defense is the number one thing that sets us apart from any other activity. I mean, there is no other sport, there is no other activity that teaches you how to defend yourself, right? In that physical manner, right? We could talk about, physical fitness and nutrition and all those things are also self-defense, but in the physical respect, we all think fighting in self-defense is the number one. And I think that they need that, but that may not be what they want coming in. Mom and dad want them to have confidence. They want them to have discipline. They want them to have better focus. So we can always give them both, right? And you tied everything in that you said with your three things to be both, right? I mean, it goes on both sides.
Yep.
So looking ahead, what continues to drive your passion for teaching, leading, and making an impact in your community and the industry?
I think community is a big chunk of it. If we want our martial arts school and our company and our family to be leaders in the community, I got to do leader things. Okay, I got to bring to the table what other people can't, or what other people just they don't have the skill set for. And so it's a lot of little things. Let's say like our partners in education stuff. There's some schools. I get a shout out to Rich over at Knapp Elementary School. I met Rich like 15 years ago, I think. Now we're good friends and we go watch UFC fights and everything. And but Rich will have us come out and just do a little fundraising program. And we'll raise their school like $1,000, $2,000 a year, and 100% of everything just goes back to their school. These schools are strapped for cash, especially now. Kind of in third, starting fourth quarter, they've already gone through their budgets. And I once had another principal say, we rolled in, we did a fundraiser, we did a kickathon, and one of their kids at that school, at that elementary school, was a karate student of ours, and came in and they got like pledges and sponsors per kicks, raised like a couple $100, and everything went back to that child's elementary school. And the principal, Sherry, she says, you don't get it. It was about this time of the year, like in April. She said, our budget is gone and we have no money left over for our fifth grade graduation. She said, I don't have money for streamers, for balloons, for cake, for programs. I got nothing because of all these other expenses that came up. And she said, and this kickathon saved our fifth grade graduation. And the kid was a fifth grader too, so it worked out great. And she said, okay, we're going to do a plaque for you guys. I said, don't do a plaque for me. He's the one who kicked, 900 times. I said, I was sweating just watching him. So, it's doing stuff in the community to help make your community better with no expectation of return at all, because good things come around. And, a lot of that is about relation, just like with Rich, I wasn't looking at developing a friendship, when we met 15 years ago, and here, lo and behold, we'll go and watch UFC fights together. And, it's kind of that give without expectation that just helps with everybody's growth, because over the last 15 years, we started adding it up like maybe, 7-8 years ago. We've raised over $92,000 for local schools, straight cash. And that's almost $100,000 that these schools never had before. And that has gone right back into the community. So it's stuff like that, that kind of always goes full circle, and trying to lead from in front, in the community, doing stuff like that.
Well, and I just love the attitude, because it's not just a win-win, it's a win-win-win, right? It's a win for your martial arts school. It's a win for the community or the schools, and it's a win for the students that are involved, because they're learning those leadership skills and they're learning the importance of community service and giving back. And I love what you do with the schools, and you've inspired us to do even more every year. I'm just watching, and I'll tell my wife every now and again, look at Kurt giving another check to the schools. I love this guy, right?
Cool.
And so we've modeled a little bit of what we do to give back, and we do a lot of things in other ways. So I totally agree with you on that. And let's face it, I look at being in business over 30 years, the community has given us so much. It's only right. It's only full circle to give back, right? And so what a great lesson we're teaching our kids. So hey, what an amazing time we've had. It's been an hour already, and we've had a pretty solid audience today. Thank you guys all for watching. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please share it with everybody around you and let them watch this video and learn a little bit more about Kurt. And check out our next one next week, every Thursday, 10 a.m. Pacific time. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitch, and Twitter. I'm looking at the top here, but would love to have you guys continue watching. But Kurt, thanks for hanging out with me today. Thanks for everything. Anything last minute thoughts?
Just a pleasure. Jason, I've known you for how long? 18 years, I think.
It's been a bit. It's been a bit.
Yeah, it's just this is fun stuff. Keep doing what you're doing, and it's a great way to be involved with not just the community in general, but just the martial arts community, business community too.
Absolutely. Guys, listen, it's been a great morning, and hope you have a great day. Enjoy your weekend. Thank God for all your blessings. And Kurt, once again, thank you so much for being on the show. I'll look forward to seeing you very soon.
Thank you, sir.
All right, guys, go out and make it a great day. Take care.